I think we should just get cracking anyway, and if there's any wee latecomers, we can catch up.
Okay, right. Good to have you all back again. The usual, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll ignore you. And only joking. Listen, don't worry if you haven't got your postcard pack. I haven't got mine either. I'll give you alternatives of what we can do, and to let your creativity flow. I have usually when I would go into a workshop, I would be coming in with my suitcases and bags of stuff and setting these all down and getting these to do the actual work there and then. With circumstances as they are, we can't really do that. So I have done some examples of what we can do, and I've got a whole load of crap here, to be honest with you. I shouldn't say crap, but you know what I mean. But what I thought I'd do was start with a wee PowerPoint presentation of where I've come from and some of the stuff that I've done, and how it's related to sort of socially engaged practice, but also, I mean, there was issues when we were dealing with some of the the residue of conflict and stuff. So are you all happy enough with that? And I'll kick on with that. Yeah, give me a thumbs up. Okay, right, bear with me as well because I have to do the whole screeny thing.
There's always a bit of like dread when you go to share your screen if it's going to work or not.
Flippin' oh, tell me about it. Here we go. Right. Okay, so this is a potted history of some art I have created, or how I became a socially engaged artist. This was my idea of a joke, and now looking at it and going, flip, you sound like a nerd. But anyway, here we go. This is a piece that I done, I must have been about 1992. I was still at art college. And one of the things when I was looking through all the work later on, or, getting this prepared, I noticed that I did, even back then, I liked wallpaper. I was very interested in sort of feminist issues and women and the home, the relationship they have with the home. But I also obviously had this thing about looking out windows and seeing pretty pictures and this sort of future thing. And I put that up there. That again, the horse's head's quite important as well, because it was one of those things that you would have hid behind. Or I thought, you put this mask on. And I've revisited that as well with some videos where, you're putting a face on, like you put your makeup on. My mum was always a great believer in, you didn't air your dirty washing, you just put your face on and you went on ahead out. So I sort of start with that. And then this is one about the same time. But again, I've got on the background there, it's like flock material that I've painted. And also they're very sort of colourful paintings around this time, very sort of wee bit fantasy, and the ribbons and the girls with the flowing hair, etc. This one was called My Granny's Coat, because my granny would have had a big coat like this. And again, it's all bit, there's a bit of a story there that I know is going on, but you don't really see it. And one of the things that I discovered is, like, I'm a very narrative artist. I like to tell a story. And I realised that this stuff wasn't really telling a story. Started to put a wee bit of symbolism in. The girl was disappearing. In the background, you had sort of like a skyline of Belfast. But there's wee things that are just starting to sort of come into the work, like the bunting. And then on top of the houses there, you've got, like flags. So it was sort of these wee bits and things, symbolisms were coming into the work. But I really wasn't sort of defining it. I wasn't, they were being well received and it was shown and stuff, but just wasn't particularly happy. But that ethos of, sort of growing up in the troubles and, the divisions, etc., they obviously were there on a subconscious level. I was in this one here, that I ran a gallery from the house for a few years. So I was showing lots of artists like Ursula Burns and Ian Charlesworth. He ended up going to represent at the Venice Biennale. Ursula Burke, is pretty well known internationally now as well. Peter Richards, who runs the Golden Thread. So these were all people I was working with at the time. But this one and this, it's a bit of a bad picture, but there's sort of like nails falling down from the sky, and it was done in a series called Belfast Confetti, which was obviously a bit inspired by the Kieran Carson poem. And the circus tent, you've got this sort of like a circus city, like a three-ring circus was sometimes going on, and there's a bit of bunting in there. So again, there's all these bits of symbolism coming through. And then I sort of realised that was because you were always influenced by the Orange Order banners and their colour. And again, you've got the horse. Now, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with horses, and they recur occasionally. And I just wanted to know who the man on the white horse was. And my mother, in her wisdom, told me that it was Lester Piggott, the jockey. And I believed her. So there was me running around East Belfast going, that's not King Billy, that's Lester Piggott. And wondering why people were giving me funny looks and stuff. But you also had this type of thing that these were sort of like that I was surrounded with. And this was a Vanderslide print, one of those, sort of in the vein of the Blue Lady. And this hung on my Granny Mackerel's wall. And they told me, I was always lied to as a kid. Obviously, it was Lester Piggott and the White Horse. And this was my Aunt Lillian, who lived in South Africa. So there's, they had all this real glamorous fantasy escapism type of thing going on in the work. But underlying, there was this, trying to get a story across. It wasn't quite working. So we'll skip on a few years. And I'd been working a lot in the community realm, doing stuff for groundwork, and it was pretty safe stuff. And then this post came up for North Down Borough Council, as it was in the Kilcooly estate, which is a fairly, as estates go, it's not the worst in the world, but it has its moments, as you can tell here. And it was a 4-year project, and my job was to negotiate with gatekeepers to remove murals, memorials, etc. And you can see here, this is one of the kids taking out a EFF mural, and there was a piece of artwork replacing that. What we didn't do as well, though, we'd never replace them with murals. We always tried to do something different. And again, I was Ursula Burke was one of the artists we employed for this as well. Lucy Turner, the printer, Helen Sharp, who's done great stuff with Border videos. I think she's done something with the Ulster Museum there recently. So we're really trying in a working class area to bring a bit of quality art, but also something that said something about the area. And this piece was called the Kilcooly Obelisks, and it was created by Lucy Turner. So I was basically managing the project. And the Kilcooly Obelisks here, all the copper panels are photographs from the estate. And this was the first time anything like this had ever went up in the estate. And they really loved it, and they called it Woodhenge. And I always think if a sculpture gets a nickname, it's pretty good there. It's like, they've taken it, they've embraced it. It's a bit like, Rise in Belfast, where they call it the Balls and the Falls. And, if something gets a nickname, it's pretty sort of embedded there, which is always good. One of the things about this project as well was it was one of the first that addressed the removal of paramilitary murals. So we were starting on this journey of post-conflict, dealing with post-conflict issues. And this would have been back in about 2004, 2005. The council at the time hated it, absolutely hated it. They made me have a partnership meeting every month for 4 years because they didn't want, and I suppose they had their concerns, they didn't want any of the ex-paramilitaries or the gatekeepers or restorative justice groups getting their actual hands on the money, which is fair enough. That was never going to happen, But what we had with all the different artists coming through was I was always the constant. So I had built up the relationship, which is very important when you're working in this sort of context. From that, then I started working with a housing executive, and again, there was a lot of re-imaging working on, and this piece is on the Shankill estate, and I've worked on the Shankill estate on and off now for more than 10 years. They called me an honorary Shankill woman at one stage, and I didn't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but I was going to take it. This actual mural appears on one of the postcards that Samantha was talking about the other day, and I was sorry to say I was one of the people that actually painted over it, but it has been well recorded. So the Shankill at this stage, they were going through a lot of regeneration, etc. But they wanted to have a social message in their artworks. And they come up with this civil rights slogan, "Nothing about us without us is for us." And this house, these actual houses have been knocked down since this was put up, but they actually got me to reprint this and put it on another wall because they really, they believed in the message. And all the background is made up of images of people from the estate. On the side panel there, you can see there's an explanation about, where the artwork came from, etc. And we do have what was on the wall before, is, we always made a record of that. And this was under, you had the Belfast City Council, Housing Executive and the Arts Council involved in this. This is another one. We were talking about Drumcree and the postcards the other day. And there was a public meeting when these murals were being talked about coming down. And the gatekeepers were very much earmarked ones to come down, and this was one of them. But at that particular public meeting, there was a councillor there, and he thought he had a bit of sway in the area, and he was absolutely disgusted that this was coming down. But I mean, Drumcree had sort of moved on. There wasn't a big protest around it as much. And the communities realised this as well, that they didn't want to be associated with this anymore. So they came up with this idea of having an A to Z of the Shankill. And it was some of their history, about the shops in the Shankill mission, etc. And again, you can see just on my left-hand side, you can see what was there before. And the other side is the panel explaining what all the letters mean. And that piece is still there. I think it was put up about 2006. So they're starting to put stuff up that wasn't, that had a bit of a message. Oliver Cromwell, again, lovely man, Shankill Estate, would got a wee bit more money at this stage, and they wanted something a bit sculptural. So they come up with this slogan, remember, respect, resolution. There was I was working with a lot of men at this stage, so it's like quite patriarchal. There's nothing, I was sort of like the conduit for their ideas, and if I'd left them their devices, I'd have put up another mural, which is perfectly fine, and there's definitely a place for mural art within the country, etc. And Bill will be talking about that in a couple of weeks' time. But at the same time, they're very divisive. They can be very divisive. They can be very territorial with markings, etc. But they decided to put up a sculpture, and we didn't have a lot of money. So in my great negotiation skills, I got these 3 pieces of steel for about 12 grand. In fact, the whole thing came in at 12 grand because the housing executive pebble dashed the wall for me for free. Bribed a builder who was working on site to give me to source the pebbles, the cobblestones. And they donated the seats as well. The community they wanted a seat somewhere where they could sit down at this. And again, sort of, but it's a very simple design, but it was very groundbreaking for that community. And the idea of the words came from remember the past, respect, the present and people's beliefs, and try and find a resolution forward, which I thought was fairly forward thinking at the time. And, again, they've embraced it. They call it the 3 R's. It's been well cared for. There's been no graffiti. They haven't used it as a memorial or anything. So, that's a win in my book. At the same time, I was still doing some of my own practice, and this was called, I'd done this White Horse series in high quality gilt. So I was still working a lot with kids' toys and that symbolism of the white horse. We've got soldiers around the bottom of this because one of my imaginary friends, while thinking that Lester Piggott was on the white horse and that my Aunt Lillian was a half-naked woman in a painting, was my imaginary friend was a soldier when I was a kid. So, make of that what you want. And they say that, the Troubles didn't really affect anybody, but I'm not so sure. So this is the type of thing I was doing, but I was also making sort of like installation pieces, and I was working with a group called Creative Exchange, and we decided to run a billboard project, and there was up to we would have had at one stage up to 50 billboards in East Belfast with artworks on them. And so this is a piece. This is actually, it stands up, freely stands, if you know what I mean. But I took the photograph from above for the purposes of the billboard. And the shoes on either side, that was a reference to people walking to the field and their new shoes on and the white stilettos. And of course, this is the before when they start and they're all perfectly gorgeous. And then when they come home from the field, they're a bit wrecked and their feet are all bloody and bruised. And, you know, so again, there's these wee bits of symbolism. And this one was called I Am Not a White Horse. The other thing that was on the horses, their saddles, I had made the saddles in the shape of the 6 counties. Just as like, you know, that saddle thing, you know, that weight that you're carrying. And this one was called the bearing rein. And if anybody knows anything about horses, a bearing rein is something that really just restricts a horse's movement and its head. It can't throw its head up, it can't turn its head, etc. But the thing about this, although it's on canvas, the ribbon, I've actually threaded the ribbon through the canvas. And it's in a deep frame, so the plastic shoulders are there as well. So I'm beginning to start to do these sort of taking it off like a 2D surface. Right, skipping on a few years again. I'd finished working for North Down Borough Council. I was doing a bit of a community art, socially engaged, giving people a voice through art. Mainly, and I have to admit, mainly in loyalist and Protestant communities, because they didn't get the propaganda and the international outreach or viewpoint that some nationalist and Republicans murals got. Again, Bill will talk about that in a couple of weeks' time. But one of the things that I was doing when we were growing up, I had all these, banners and festival type things, and you didn't really know what it was for. But one of the things that the RUC used to run was called the Blue Lamp Discos. And I done a bit of research into this and met some lovely ex-policemen, and I'm not even being sarcastic when I say that. They were really, really helpful. And they were able to tell me, I mean, I remember going to a Blue Lamp Disco when I was in about primary 6, primary 7, thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, because I am a bit of a disco diva, and who doesn't love a feather boa? So I decided to recreate these discos because of the irony of the police running a disco in the 70s and 80s. It turns out there was over something like 200,000 kids went to these discos in 1 year across the province. They are recorded in the Chief Constable reports. They were the main way that the RUC interacted with the youth of the day. And they also, for more rural areas, they would have run the RUC orienteering clubs, and they also done top of the form quizzes as well. And I have to admit, I was a bit of a nerd when in year 1 of secondary school, I ended up being in a top of the form quiz because my head is literally full of useless information. So this was creating the Blue Lamp Disco. I was miming to a lot of law-related songs, and this is me doing my version of Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. And this is a poster that I had. This is me dressed up as Pam Grier, who sung a song called Long Time Woman, which was about being in jail, basically. I'm not actually blacked up. That is just me with a bit of tan on me, as in, going out sort of Essex girl. And I also like in the way that I'm 6'6" in this picture, but anyway. The actual disco was held, and this was I loved this part of it, was actually held in an ex-police station in Queen Street in Belfast. And I had some videos going of me miming to these law-related songs, which was great fun. And then on the actual opening night, we literally had a disco, and I was spinning the tunes, but it was all 1970s, like super cheese, like Kelly Marie and stuff. So there was this element of performance coming into the work as well, but still with that sort of, nod to our society, etc. But what you have to remember as well, people started staying very much in their own areas around in the 70s and 80s. After the Miami show band, etc., people just didn't want to go out the centre of town. It was sort of like, the Ring of Steel, Derry would have been the same, but people still wanted to entertain, and they still wanted this, desire to go out and boogie and be normal, I suppose. this is another one of the billboard projects, and it sort of took, coming back to the home theme, this was my shelf in my studio of things that were important to me. And it reminded me of things that people have on their shelves in their homes. And I was actually making a postcard series at the time, and you can see it there where I was using children's sticker book images, again referencing the children's toys with the white horse. But I had called this one Parades Commission, and had actually used one of the Queen's drum horses. It was a wee sticker of one of the Queen's drum horses, and I thought that was sort of that bit of humour. I like a bit of humour in my work as well. So and I thought that was just, and it just sort of was relevant because it was East Belfast. I had a wee photograph of the shipyard as well. What have I forgotten now? Yes, right. So there's a wee bit of text coming into the work, and I got into doing these videos and all, thinking I was going to be the next Tarantino. But one of the things as well, the stories were all, I recreated 4 video stories, and they were all based on true stories. One of them was about how a woman danced in her husband's grave. One of them was about domestic abuse, and they're quite funny. I'll send you links to them. There is a bit of humour to them as well. I know that sounds really weird, but I love that we have in the North this black sense of humour. But the words were all knitted by my glamorous assistant, who is called my mother, and they were all put up in clothes pegs. So it was sort of recreating this house sort of feel. And on the wall facing it, I had a wallpaper to wall again, nice white flock wallpaper. And there's a close up of it. This went on to be shown in the Golden Thread and Up in the Void and Artslink. So there you can see some of the words my mum's knitting there. And that's a close up of one of the pieces as well. So the narrative and the story starting to come through a wee bit more. This is my mum with all her knitted pieces on the floor, which I thought was just a nice, it's like a nice photograph in itself. And when you listen to some of the videos, and I'll send you the link, I'll get them there, and they're very, very short, only about 3 or 4 minutes long. I don't believe in doing long video art stuff. Started using mirrors as well, sort of like that reflection man in the mirror piece. This was created when the Turner Prize was up in Derry, and we hosted some of the curators who were over, and we basically, it wasn't even to do with work. They came down and we made them dinner and fed them wine, and they were more than grateful, because I think at this stage they were arted out. But through this using the sort of like the broken mirror, the Bausch Theatre Company commissioned me to make a piece for the Queen's the Queen's Festival. And the pieces in the bottom were all sort of like laser cut wood. I think it might have been Fab Lab who done this for me in Belfast. I'm not too sure. Can't remember that far back. But the ceasefire letters are actually mirrored acrylic. And this was them in place in the Victoria Square Dome. And I covered the bottom pieces with broken glass, or the broken mirror. So it was like the reflection, the perfect mirrored piece and the broken piece. This was a collaboration. Connor Mitchell, the composer, he wrote a piece of music for this, and also Bausch Theatre, where they had like 2 estate agents, 2 actresses who were selling the city after all the regeneration. And the reason they done this was to commemorate the IRA 20th anniversary of the IRA and loyalist ceasefires. So they had 20-year-old musicians playing the piece, and it was quite poignant. I mean, I was up a few times seeing it, and I mean, that place never stops. It just, people go up to see the view, and then they had this art piece going on as well. And again, I'll show you the wee video of it, of if you were a person going in to see it. I was over in America for about 4 months then, and again, using all these words, I didn't have a lot of money when I was over there. We were living in the black area. Me and the 2 girls I was over with were called Snowflakes the whole time. It was like, hey, Snowflake. And this was just my response to words that people used in the area, and how they looked. They had their nails on and their weave on. The weave in the black community is really, really, it's a big thing. People would have literally come up and touched my hair in the bus because it was straight and natural. It was seen as white hair. It was really weird. But I was putting this piece up. It's just a wee wheat paste, and there was this black guy come up to me called Tyrone. And I says, "Oh, Tyrone, how are you doing? It's lovely to meet you." I explained what I was doing. And I explained, he's me, "Oh, you're called Tyrone, that's a county in Ireland where I come from." He hadn't a clue where Ireland was. He hadn't a clue what Tyrone was. And I says, "Right, okay, we'll move on from that." And then he was wondering why I was like a white girl, was living here, etc. And he was asking me if we had a lot of drug problems and where I came from. And I says, "Oh, no, we don't. We would have to a certain extent, but you know, the Irish love a good drink." And I was explaining, that I came from a working class background. This was a real big opportunity for me. And so we're chatting away. And then he takes a step back and he looks at me and he goes, "Are you white trash girl?" And I just killed myself laughing. And I went, "Actually, yes." And all I could think about was I'm embracing Britney Spears. So that was it was a real experience. And part of the residency as well, though, was to work with the community and local school kids. So I was actually working for a bit in the National Buildings Museum over there, doing sort of like town planning with the kids. Really, really interesting time. Came back using a bit of collage. This was with a project called Draw Down the Walls, based in North Belfast with the Shankill and Ardoyne and Marrowbone. So you've got cross community. This is we're working with kids who didn't know anything about the Troubles. There was called ceasefire babies, and who lived beside interfaces and peace walls. And it was really great project. The kids they got really involved and they wanted to know actually why is it there. They'd grew up with this, and then started to ask questions, etc. So that was good. The whole project was very groundbreaking because they went on to get Cultural Olympiad money, and they brought over a Colombian artist called Oscar Muniz, and he made this piece. I was involved in some of the workshops with this and took Oscar on a few tours around Belfast, etc. Lovely man. And this is actually in the sort of no man's land between two peace walls on the Crumlin Road and Ardoyne in North Belfast. And it's actually an aerial view of pieces of North Belfast. What he had done, he'd actually covered them with shattered glass. So this was actually opened up, and where the big gates were, where the said road closed, we got put up, exhibition open, etc. This is a video of it. That's why it's all off kilter. And we had it open for a few months, and it caused a lot of, it's actually, this is when we were starting to talk about getting maybe walls removed, getting gates opened, etc. And further on up the road in the Crumlin Road, that actually did happen. There was one of the walls came down, and now there is still a railing there, but it's not a horrible, security type railing. So these were the type of things that the artwork was doing. It was starting a catalyst for change. It was starting a conversation. I was also working on my own practice at the time, back to my wallpaper, back to writing down stories. Sometimes there's just some stories you can't tell to people, or you want to confess and you can't. So what I came up with the idea of was writing the story down and then writing over it again and writing over it again, so you can't actually tell what the story means, and also hiding some of the panels. And this is sort of a reference as well, as you change the wallpaper in your house, you change the pattern, but you rarely change the pattern in your life. There's also that, I can probably guarantee you that it's always the woman that picks the wallpaper in a house, and it's maybe only 75% of the time she actually hangs it. So there's also that sort of, sorry Jim, I thought you were going to say something there. There's also that sort of, you bring, wallpaper is usually something that has flowers, the garden, so you're bringing this outdoors in. You've got all these different domestic references about some of the best things in your life happen in the house and some of the worst things happen there as well. This is just another piece of it. And I had a lovely shelf created for this as well, where we were able to layer them. And some of these pieces were actually bought by the Visual Artists Ireland collective, which was always nice. Another piece that was part of this project was like perspex that you could see through. So although the side and some things you could see through other things, and it was that reference of repeat pattern. You've rarely changed the patterns in your life. And these went on some of these went on to New York and the Scope, exhibitions over there, and I just had to go with them, obviously, because, you know, they're so priceless, and it was a trip to New York, so can't complain. Yeah, I was in, come back to be a bit more community. I worked in the New Lodge Arts. I was their artist in residence a couple of years ago. We started doing collage stuff. And again, this is stuff that you will maybe be doing in your postcards. We've got Danielle Punk here, who loves a bit of leopard skin. And you can see she's wearing some, and she's got some in her collage. Danielle also had a brain injury. She's only about 41, 42. And she was cared for by her mum. And she's back to full health now. But this was about, again, using words to put in the, you know, getting your story across. What the ladies, there's all the ladies there, so there's some of them. That's Danielle's mommy in the middle, who's so glamorous and she's so like punky. What the ladies also done, using a bit of video again, I remember there was this song like called Sunscreen, and it sort of like had a bit of a dance track to it, and it was all about, you know, you must look after your knees, you don't know when you're going to need them, etc. So what the ladies done was actually made their own song as a homage to that, and they read out their own words over this sort of like dance beat. So they had things like make a house, not a home. You know, it's about the values you live by and the community you grew up in. And I'll send you a link to that as well. But it was they really embraced it. They hadn't done anything like that, and they were sort of saying, so we were sort of using words, we used a bit of collage, and then we were using music as well. So you've got this sound thing coming into it as well, and it references me having a disco as well, of how music can take you back to another place. This was obviously the processions, with nationwide project, run by 1418 now, and this was celebrating the 100 years of women having the right to vote. And one of the groups that I work with were from Kilcooley, because I had maintained those links with the, you know, the community. And although it was different women I was working with, you know, I had built that relationship up, so they were still working with them. The Trust Women Equal Power Choice, that was actually knitted by my mum, who's there. Let me see, and this was their main banner that they all came together and created, with obviously a bit of help from me. We were using the purple and the green for the suffragette colours. I put a white horse in it because it was a banner, and I just, you know, again, that bit of humour. You've got the butterflies for change, etc. And the actual original piece was maybe only about A3 size, and obviously we got this blew up and it was put onto PVC. It was also, that was us, we were one of the groups to get a band in front of us, so I thought, this is just perfect. We have a band, we have a banner, we have a white horse, you know, what's not to love? I was living the dream. And one of the things we also done in this parade, when anytime we seen the TV cameras, we were all like, right, raise the banner up, and we done a wee bit of a dance with it as well. And it did make such a difference having the drums beside you when you were, you know, when you were walking. The piece, this was at Millennium Court. This is some of the ladies who helped make it on all their individual bannerettes. And this toured across the UK. It was a brilliant project to be part of. And it hit all my, you know, it was everything I loved. It was working with women, working in the community. They were learning a bit about their history, about the right to vote, about their rights as women. I got a white horse and leopard skin in it. What's not to love? This is one of the pieces I done again for the 2020 exhibition. And it's actually coming, again, just using those things that you find around the house. This is actually made out of paper doilies. And the slogan on it, or the words that I come up with, are only half the story is true, the rest is necessary. I think I've got a wee close-up of it there, so you can see that it's all doilies. And you've got this reference of seeing through things as well. So it's sort of all these recurring themes that are going through the work. And I really enjoyed that piece, doing it. It was great fun. You know, the process sometimes is more important than the actual piece. And hopefully that's what you will find when you're making your postcards, that it's a process, and, you know, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Another billboard project, again using this wee tagline, only half the story is true. And this was a video still of me. I'd taken it for this, and this was one of the videos where I was putting my makeup on, of, you know, taking it off and putting it on. And it was about again, I'll send you the link to it, but it was about this girl who had seen a fella she'd been out with 20 years before, and he was still standing in the same place. He was still standing outside the bar. And then she had to think, had she moved on, or had he stood still? And it's a nice, it's a true story as well. So I'll send you a wee link to that. And it's all about, it's what they always say, there's three sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and the truth. So again, there's always those wee references and those wee sort of nuances. Right, we're nearly the end, folks. I'm not going to bore you anymore, but in the background there, there's Flax Mill, and that was where we had the ambulatorio piece that I showed you earlier on. This is the view from the Woodvale residence, and this was their wall, and this was one of the gates. This wall continued for about 800, 900 metres up the road. The Crumlin Road's basically walls now. Well, part of it is. So this was like this walled community, and the housing executive got in contact with me probably about 3 or 4 years ago, because it took that long to get sorted. And they wanted, no pressure, they wanted me to negotiate with the community to remove the wall and create new artworks for it. The wall wasn't removed, unfortunately. There was an incident, a shooting incident very close to this area, and they thought, the community were like, no, it's too soon. But we did manage to lower it slightly, surreptitiously, in the new plans. And we also, the gates that we designed, you can see through them. And one of the things that we decided to use was like cogs and wheels. Did a lot of consultation, but like cogs and wheels working together. It was reference to the mills. If one cog doesn't work, the whole thing doesn't work. So this was sort of the design that they come up with. And it was obviously the housing executive involved, so there was a public realm scheme going on as well. There was roads repaved, there was paving in the streets, etc. And this is one of the freestanding pieces that are on the wall. So you can see the walls considerably lower here as well. And it was all sort of like power washed and sort of made nice, as much as a wall can be. But the nice thing about these pieces as well is when the sun shines through, that you've got all the shadows coming onto the wall or onto the ground, the same as the gates. And again, these were just referencing mill workers as well. But the main thing to me was the gates that you could see through, and there was a small pedestrian gate in the side, which we're hoping to get open. This still hasn't been officially launched. Through one thing and another, with Stormont being closed down for 3 years, and they've got coronavirus. So this is sort of up, but has never been recognised. And also it sort of reminds me a bit of my doilies as well. You've got that nice pattern thing going on. So I think that's it. Is happy enough? Yeah? Is that okay? Do you need to go to the toilet? Do you need a cup of tea? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Anne, go on ahead. Hang on. Yes?
It's not a question as such, Lesley, just congratulations. That was a really, really good introduction. I really enjoyed that. Brilliant.
Thank you. Anybody else?
There's Melanie. Does Melanie want to ask me a question?
Okay.
There you go, Melanie.
I'm the same, Lesley. That was brilliant. And blue lamp discos, I remember them. They were fabulous.
I tell you, they were the best things in sliced bread. I love them. And
that painting of your aunt. Yeah, we had one of those as well.
Well, I actually have the one that my granny passed away a few years ago, and I said to me, the only thing I want is that painting of me, Aunt Lily, And it's so rich, but I love it. So.
Yeah. Super talk, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
What's a blue light disco?
Right, you weren't listening. They were actually run by the RUC in the 1970s and 80s, right up to the early 90s.
Yeah.
And they were in schools and youth groups and stuff, and they were seen as like a safe place for people to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I done a wee bit of research into them, that's what I was saying to the group, there was something like about 200,000 kids went to these blue lamp discos in 1 year. It was the only youth outreach that the RUC had. I mean, and the irony of these cops coming into schools, running a disco, and then maybe going out the next day and lifting your da. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, and there's that, you know, that's what I like about, there's always that wee bit of humour in the work. You know, art shouldn't be too serious. You know, if you're going to get a message, there is a serious point to it. But, you know, if you can have a laugh with it as well, I think that's half the battle. Do you know what I mean? You know, you don't laugh, you cry, you know. So, yeah. Anybody else? No. Yes, Rosie, go on ahead.
I just love the work, Lesley. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
The themes, and I especially love the gates and the can't even pronounce it. The walkway.
Ambulatorio, yes.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Beautiful.
No, it was a good piece, and then that was, I say, Oscar Muniz was the artist there, but we were like his support group. And we continued to have workshops about the peace walls and interface areas with local kids. You know, that was a project that lasted about 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Doing different workshops. That was sort of like the icing and the cake when we got the Cultural Olympiad money. We were able to do something for the communities of a certain standard, of a certain level. You know, it doesn't have to be, here, let's paint a community mural and get the kids to put their handprints on it.
Yeah.
You know, there is a place, I'm sure, for that, but you know, that wasn't
enough
the
for that.
today, yeah. You know.
Yeah, and I love the layers of symbolism. You know, it's amazing. But the gates, how did you create the gates?
Right. And actually, well, on the wee list of things that I sent you, I put in, you know, like wee nuts and bolts, the things you find in a kitchen drawer, and the idea was there, and what I done was I'd done a wee watercolor sketch of the gates, and then I literally stuck some of these nuts and bolts in a gate shape. Now that was just my idea. For the life of me, I cannot find those pieces. They're somewhere in my studio.
In your head.
They'll turn up. And then I was speaking to my lovely graphic friend, because we always have one. See, I've got two at the minute. I've got Paul and Jude here in this project. There's always somebody that can do a bit of tech work for you. And I was talking to him, and I said, like, this is what I want. This is the idea. So we come up with some shapes. I give him the idea of the curve. The curve of the gates was very important because it meant they were lower at the side. So it wasn't straight up. You know, it was all these wee visual clues, all these wee visual, you know, it's curved, which is always more inviting than something straight. It's like, you know, everybody loved the arch window in play school, or the round window. The square window was always your least favourite window for some reason. And also wanted it to, you know, it had to be see-through, you know. And then practical things like the bottom of it, a bit more solid, so that you weren't getting, you know, like glitter and stuff going through under the gap, you know. So that's the idea. But when we were talking to the community about it, you know, that's how I sold it, you know, about the industry, the mills that were still there, some of the few mills that are still in Belfast, and one of them is right on the Crumlin Road. There's actually 2 of them on the Crumlin Road. So, and also it wasn't, you know, they were sort of solid but inviting. You know, there's that nice pattern. If a security gate can ever be inviting, you know, it was sort of breaking down those barriers and stuff.
Yeah, it makes you want to peek over.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's like, you know, watching it, but also because you can see through it, you don't have to walk up and go, oh, what's in there? You can see clearly.
It's fabulous piece.
Thank you.
Wow, well done.
Anybody else?
Loads of lovely comments there coming through in the chat as well.
Oh, right. Thanks, Paul.
First time I've ever heard of blue lamp discos. I'd never heard of them either.
Oh, I mean, that's these guys didn't see it, the balaclava that I had on in the one of the videos. I actually had it sitting here and I put it on for the lads this morning to make them laugh. And we was almost tempted to have it on when you all came on board and thought, no, that's just a wee bit, that's a touch too much.
Not on the job long enough, eh, Lesley?
I know, I'll be getting kicked out. Okay, right. The other thing I was going to say to you is give you a few ideas about what to do in your postcards. Does this, so you can see straight away, I wasn't the type of person who would sit down and draw or paint on the postcards and stuff. And I've used a lot of collage. I've used a lot of words. So what I've done, I've got a few wee ideas together. I actually, again, press ganged my glamorous assistant, my mother, into making some postcards. So I'll show you some of them. The other thing that she's doing, if you remember the Knitted Word project, I've actually got her knitting on some like COVID words and some lockdown words. So, I mean, this is the type of thing she's making at the moment. Can you see that?
Oh, lovely.
Brilliant.
And so if anybody is a knitter, what I can do is I can actually scan the pattern she's using, which is like super ancient. But I thought this was just nice to show you. What have we got here? Oh, this is a good one. It was like box set, because that's what everybody's watching box. So it's all these wee funny things that we're doing. I have no idea what I'm going to do with these. But, you know, I'm sure I'll show them at some stage. Maybe stick them onto a postcard and send them through the post to one of these, or you never know. Some of the other things, let's see. Sorry, my house isn't ideal for doing this. One of the other things she made, she didn't have a postcard. What she done, some of you don't have your pack. This is an envelope that she's just stuck down. When you get your packs, you'll get some blank postcards. But in the meantime, if you want to do some samples, you want to have a bit, you know, because that's what it's all about, just having some samples. So that's what she done to make her postcard. But on the other side, she's made, I don't know, you can see that okay? She's like done
some of you might be on speaker view, gallery view. If you click up in the top right, that'll make Lesley bigger when she's talking, and you can see that.
I don't need to be bigger, thank you.
Oh, well, you want to see your mad beautiful artwork.
Can you see that okay?
Great.
So that's literally just pieces of magazine, and you can see she's done all the smiley faces, and you know, you've got this family thing coming in, and really, really simple. This is actually one that I found upstairs that the kids had done from a few years ago. And so they were sort of getting a wee bit, you know, more of their ideas and things, you know. I don't know where Discover the Mistress comes from, but I decided not to ask. I thought that was a bit too much, but for some reason I liked it. I kept that wee one. This is one that I done. I just took it out of the frame for you, and it's coming down to this idea of the story as well. And this is Dirty Little Secret. You can see I was really annoyed with somebody when I made this, but the actual piece here I've written over the pattern, so it's really, really quite hard to see. So I quite like this sort of, you know, this subversive thing. If you know there's a story there, you know, part of it. Sometimes you tell the whole story, sometimes you don't. And again, you've got this nice, me and my patterns. Honestly, I mean, I don't know what it is about pattern, but it appeals to me, considering I only ever seem to wear black. Found this one in a wee magazine as well. I thought that was very apt. What a year. It's just like, you know, you can't, if everybody said, you know, they're just going to write 2020 off, you know. There's one of the things that I always, when you're looking through magazines and you've got an idea, no matter where you open a magazine, there's always going to be some word that you're going to find. I mean, I literally just opened this here now, and there we go. Right, you can see the top of that, not transparent. So I'm thinking, well, there's transparent. Are the government being transparent with us? Is there a story we need to know? You know, there's always going to be some word or some image. This has never failed me, by the way. I'm going to do it again, not even look. Let's see. Oh, right, okay. I don't know how apt this one is, but this is Sex and the Supermodel. but I'm sure we could use something, let's say, down at the bottom, in her sights. So you can maybe reference sights as in the sights of the future. There's women, the word worlds. So although that title might put you off, there's always something maybe along the bottom that will get you thinking. And that obviously you've got the images as well. If you wanted to do something just using images. What else have I done? Right. One of the things we're all going to ask is to do as well, when you get your blank postcards, is to maybe send some out to friends or family. And me and my mum, we decided one of the wee ideas, I'm going to try and bring up some more photographs here, and I'll talk you through it. Might be easier. Right. Okay. No, sorry, I don't think this is going to work. I should have sent these to Jude.
Have you tried sharing your screen first and then just click on
Oh,
it?
right, okay. Duh.
there has been issues with the screen sharing, so brilliant. Okay,
right. So I'll talk. You can see all this other crap around it. I can't get it up big, but sorry. So what I've done was I got 4 postcards, and I've got the 4 postcards here. You can't see that now, right? So if
we can actually, yeah.
All right, can you?
Else, but
okay.
If we go to gallery view and speaker view, you can see the shared screen and Lesley, but that's up in the top right hand corner. Try and find that and you'll be able to see both.
Okay, so what I'd done was I'd stuck these together, and I thought, well, if we draw one image, we could maybe send these pieces out and you'll get different things back. I just literally used, if you can see that, Frida Kahlo mask as a bit of inspiration. And I loved Frida Kahlo. Don't know whether you are familiar with her, but she was obviously crippled. She used nails quite a lot in her work as well, because she was in so much pain. I'd just done a black outline in this. She felt a bit caged, so she's got a caged earring, and she was very housebound. Very bad drawn, but anyway. So that was it, just changed up. What I done was this is just tissue paper that I'm using, and 2 pieces of tissue paper to get a shadow, and there was it finished. You can see that there. So when you've got the nails in the bird cage, just a couple of pieces as we go along. I'll post all these up later for you as well. But then my mom comes along, and she does this. She's using sequins and stuff, and she's put the coloured pieces in the background were all strips of magazine, just different blue shades of magazine. She done this piece as well, and she's used sequins again for the nails, etc., and the house. But I mean, let me see. So that was R2. You can see, I don't know, obviously got my mother should have maybe been the artist in the family. So if you send out these pieces, you're going to get some different things back, and then they all come together, which I suppose is a wee reference to again coming together when all this is over. What else have I got here? Oh yes, this is again, my mother's far too talented. She should have been doing this. This is a wee piece that she done. It's again, it's just a wee postcard size, and it's off the crane. And if you can see that.
Yeah, see it perfect. Yeah.
It's just literally, if you look closely, it's just shapes. It's just, there's no shadows there. But what she's done to make it stand out is just use wee points of colour around it, and it's quite effective. And it actually came from this style came from Guatemala. A friend of mine was in Guatemala a few years ago, and sort of they were doing stuff like this. There's like a tree, and again, it's just all block colour and a couple of circles, but those wee points of paint around it just really make them stand out. I thought that was interesting. Again, you know, very, very simple to do if you want to use paint and stuff. Let's see what she's got there. No, sorry. I've got one of the pieces here that I showed you. This is about the size of the wallpaper pieces. You can see the written, you know, how you can hide a message on this as well, but make it quite decorative. This one was called With Secrets and Lies. So, there's another piece of, what was this? This was just high quality gilt. You know, so you can see how effective things are, you know, when you're putting them down, you know, the simplest things that you have around the house, and if you've got an idea. And just don't be afraid to sample, don't be afraid to try something. I'm going to be online if you need some help. Next Thursday, I want you to maybe show and tell some pieces, so we'll maybe get talking a wee bit more. Watch things like Grayson's Art Club on Channel 4. BBC4 are replaying a lot of all their art programmes about the Renaissance, about modern art, art fraud, which is always interesting. You know, even Kirsty's, you know, crafting shows. There's a lot of these things on that'll give you ideas and techniques. So, any questions? These are all looking very scared. Please don't be scared.
There's Brona's big question there. Go on ahead.
Hiya, Lesley, that was great. If you're doing the collage type stuff and sending it through the post, is there a way to ensure that the stuff doesn't come off, you know, with handling?
Right, okay. What you can do is you have, especially with collage, obviously you're going to stick it down with Prit or whatever, but if you have like PVA glue, and Nita's tacky glues are quite good, but ordinary PVA is good as well. You can post, or you can just paint over your collage and it dries clear. If it's something like this, where you have sequins and stuff on it, you can always just pop it into an envelope.
Yeah,
and get a wee bit of that, you know. I mean, especially if you know, if you are going to use some 3D or maybe buttons or something, just pop it into an envelope.
Yeah.
And you can still obviously in the back have your written story and stuff, you know, as a normal postcard. So, right.
Great, thank you.
Keelan has a wee question there.
Right.
And Jenny, I'll get you next, Jenny. Keelan, there you go.
Hiya, Lesley, that presentation was brilliant. Thanks a million. And it's just so diverse, your whole range of stuff. You need to come and work for Newry and Mourne Council, because we have our public art is shit. we've no coordinators, and so you need to give them a good boot. Well, it's not shit, but there's just so much scope for so much more, you know. It's awful. Not shit, it's not shit. I wanted to ask, if we're sending off our postcards, that we photograph them beforehand, you know, if we don't get them back or whatever, and obviously you want an outcome at the end. I don't know, is it going to go towards like an exhibition, or what? Do we keep some of them back, or?
Okay, well, you can, I suppose you can send us what you want through. The exhibition, fingers crossed, is going to happen in the Lennon Hall Library in September. This is all up in the air. What we can guarantee is we can have a digital online exhibition, and we can be posting those, you know, so that's a given. You're going to have some exhibition sort of celebration of your work, like, and you know, that ownership, and see what everybody's been doing. I can't see there being a problem if you want your piece of work back, you know, of getting it. What I meant was if we're going to post our postcard to somebody, we won't have it anymore to give you for the exhibition. That's what I mean. No, get them to send it back to you, right? Get them to make it beautiful, and then say, and by the way, this has to come back to me, or Lesley's coming around to sort you out.
Another thing that you maybe could do, it sort of takes away from like the sort of textural aspect of some of the wee things that you could be making, but you could photocopy it and mass produce it and sell it and make a fortune on your deadly postcards. But you know, that's another option. You could keep the original for yourself. Scan it, reprint it out. It might be a wee bit of a handling getting it to be the right size, but it would be nice as well, you know, to then have a digital version of it, but
Yeah.
you would then be losing out in that nice texturized part of it, if you are going down the route of sticking on different wee cuttings and stuff, you know. But it's always an option, you know. You could always do that as well.
Thank you.
Well,
And that's, if there is a bit of money, we might actually get some of them printed up properly as postcards, the real thing. But I'll have to speak to Niall about that and see how much money we can get out of them. Do you know what I mean?
There's a wee
Hey.
question there in the chat from Melanie there. She's asking, the printed postcards in the packs, do we send them out too?
You can keep them or send them out. It's up to yourself. The printed postcards, when you get them, there's one of the, sort of trying to give you a wee bit of a, broad spectrum. Some of them come from the Ulster Museum or the Effie McWilliams sculpture, Woman in a Bomb Blast. There's one of the John Luke frescoes. We've also got one of the political posters from the Lennon Hall Library. So those are those are your gift. You can keep them.
Right.
You can put them on your fridge. You can frame them. That's that's just to give you a bit of inspiration and show you the range of postcards that we have.
Oh,
Jenny,
thank you.
did you have a question, Jenny?
Yeah, there, you're unmuted now, Jenny.
Oh, right, I'm unmuted. Right, okay. No, it just goes back. It was a brilliant presentation, and thanks for that. It was really great, Lesley. Because I possibly missed a couple of minutes at the beginning yesterday, I'm just wondering, right, I know you're talking about sending the postcards out, and I got my pack, so I'm happy bunny, I've got all mine. And yes, I can photograph them before they go. I can ask for them to come back, they might not, but photographing them before is a great idea. I know you were saying, Jude, you could print them, but I don't know if there is anywhere to print. We don't have a printer at home, so
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know if anybody's doing, I don't think anybody's open to print.
Yeah, it sort of depends. It would depend then on if you've got a printer or if there's maybe online printers. It would definitely might be difficult for some.
Yeah, the only thing would be to photograph them then, I suppose. Yeah. So no, that's it. I think I think your talk has really explained things really well for me and give me lots of ideas. And I do have an art background, but it's still quite, daunting when you're doing something different, and but I think that's it. I think probably
someone's written in there in a wee chat there, and it's a good wee point for you to think about, Jenny, is there's an app called, Office Lens, and basically what it does, it would turn your smartphone into a scanner. It's probably a free app. If it's not free, there are other free options, and you would just get your phone and hold it over in a well-lit area, and it will sort of detect the edges of your document. Take a picture of it, but it won't be the same as your standard picture. It will then be able to tell the edges of the document, and you can set the edges so then it be more like a scan as opposed to a picture. That's a way of digitizing it, but you still have the problem of what? Sorry.
No, but I mean, if you photograph it, you still got a JPEG, haven't you?
Yeah, but it edits for you, so it takes out the backgrounds and it makes it look more like a scanned document. The only problem it's called Office Lens. Yeah. They're handy wee things to have. I've used them just in general before. If you have a document that you need scanned, even if it's a form for something, it's a handy wee thing to have.
Okay, I'll look at that.
There's somebody else that says you can use Dropbox to scan. This is great. I'm learning some new things here too. This is brilliant. But then you still have the problem then of how you're going to print it out if you don't have a printer at home. But it's still nice to digitize it and then you at least have it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're getting them sent even as JPEGs and stuff, I'm sure we could maybe print them off.
Oh yeah. If you have anything you would like to get, we could try and sort that out. No problem.
The other thing as well, so as long as it's a good enough high resolution, most people's phones have really good cameras on them now.
Yeah.
If you can't don't worry about getting the edges and the backgrounds. If you're a wee bit unsure, we can
touch on that as well.
We're here to solve problems. So seriously, just ask away. We might know the answers, but we're going to try.
I like Jude was saying there. If anybody's having trouble editing them, if you just want to send what you have, myself or Jude, we can touch them up for you as well in Photoshop, and we can resize them whatever you need.
Ronan made a very good point there as well, that always print if you can. Technology changes, and in time you might not be able to access stuff. So although it's good now having a wee digital copy, so if something gets built on it or something, you're not going to lose it completely, but don't rely on a digital copy to archive something, if you know what I mean. You know, if you're thinking, oh, I want to look at this in 50 years or pass this down through the family, digital's not always great. Look at floppy disks, you know, there's probably a lot of stuff that's been lost in floppy disks over the years that's, you know, unusable technology now. But it's a good wee thing to think about as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, folks, anything else? Seriously? Oh, right, okay. Well, right, the next session then is...
Jim's got a wee question there. Go on ahead, Jim.
Sorry, Jim.
Just was one thing. I got my cards. Can we send blank cards to friends to maybe get them involved?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I probably didn't make that very clear, Jim. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the things we're encouraging, send the blank ones. Give them a wee phone, say, look, I'm sending you a blank card, you know, explain to them what you're doing and stuff, you know. Absolutely, the more people involved, the better. And it's also that way of keeping in contact with people during lockdown, etc. So
I think maybe a round robin one that goes.
Yes.
We'll stand it up and add a little bit to it or something. Yeah. Okay.
That's a lovely idea. Brilliant.
Okay. Anyone else? You all good? Give me a thumbs up. You all right? Okay. Right. Next Tuesday then at 10 o'clock, Jan's going to be talking with you about the writing aspect of it, which, you know, some of you were really interested in as well, and I know I certainly am. I know Jan briefly, or, you know, I've met her a few times. She has a really good reputation. I don't know if any of you is familiar with her at all. No, well, but she's one of the good ones, as I say. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. Keep using Slack if you've got any questions. You know, throw them through to us, and you know, that's basically it. We're all good there. Yeah.
Class.
All right. So I will see you. We'll probably speak to you over the next few days, and I'll see you all next Tuesday then, 10 o'clock, bright and early. All right.